Over the last year, I've been doing the absolute bare minimum possible to get at least some semblance of gains from month to month. I'm talking from a calorie standpoint, a volume standpoint, a time management standpoint, everything that I could do just so that I could say I've had a productive workout month to month, even if it wasn't optimal. Now, this is because of the responsibilities I've had to manage with working in a 9 to 5, which I've now managed to quit so I can now focus more on training, and also entrepreneurship, which took a lot of hours from me. And it made me think, how can I make each session as effective as possible so that at least a year from now, I could say that I gave it a pretty good shot, even though it may not have been as much progress as possible. So I've dedicated this video to showing how I've still pushed my limits and learned from experiences by taking a few mistakes and a few tidbits, I suppose, from the last year, and also using it as an overarching comparison to how training in general has gone over the last year, even though circumstances have been less than ideal, because you can't wait for the perfect situation. You can't wait for the perfect workout or the perfect recovery needs or the perfect time of day. You just got to go, whatever, 3, 4 days a week, whatever you've got. So let's start with something that I see all too often. It's giving up on exercises before you've truly, I'm not going to say mastered them because that sounds like a technical standpoint. When I say truly master them, I mean in terms of the reps and the effort and time that you dedicate to them, and thinking about how this can carry over and really give it a good shot in terms of looking at the stimulus to the fatigue ratio. So, for example, for the last year, setting up on the deadlift, on the stiff leg deadlift, wasn't the best use of my time considering that it took 20 minutes just to warm up to a good working set. Comparing that to just getting straight on a leg curl machine, leaning forward, and getting a hell of a killer stretch in my hamstrings. I'm just taking this as a small part of my overall training and focusing on one movement here, but don't be too quick to abandon movements that don't feel comfortable straight away, because don't get me wrong, the first few times I did seated leg curls, I thought, oh, this is going to result in a weak lower back in the long run, or my hamstrings feel like they're about to pop because the stretch was that intense behind the knee. And I mean, if things feel awkward at first, which made me think it wasn't for me, don't quit it. Like, at least give it a few weeks, refine your form, film your sets, and understand the movements. And here's what I learned: no exercise feels perfect. It doesn't feel perfect from the start. It's easy to watch someone else execute a lift flawlessly and think you should be able to do the same. But building that kind of skill can take some time to really milk the progress from a lift. So don't buy into just thinking that just because it's a machine exercise, it's immediately going to click with you. You got to give it some serious, give it a chance. And the second mistake that I made, or I suppose we'll call it a learning point, was not building momentum in my training. This is a timeline of progress, showing how consistent effort leads to strength gains. And when I say strength gains, it is still quite relevant just to measure the progress of my training at the moment, because I'm unable to see, certainly month to month, a noticeable size or visual improvement increase in muscle mass on any muscle now. So yeah, I'm all about measuring reps, and training is like a marathon, not a sprint. So to truly progress, you need to create momentum by cycling through some form of intensity And for me, that is just taking an extra day off sometimes. It's usually never cycling through intensity in terms of how close I am to failure. I go to failure on almost all my sets. So that's why that taking extra days off, a strategic rest day, is very useful. And that does help me build momentum. That is enough for me. I don't take deload weeks anymore as it happens. I do take more rest days. That's probably a contradiction to what I was vouching for in the past. But now that I completely see training as a part of my life rather than something that has to be rigorously structured, it's easier and more effective to build momentum by going into the gym recovered instead of structuring in a way where I'm periodizing and I'm trying to periodize my way into going into the gym. You shouldn't periodize your way into going into the gym. It should be recovered when going into the gym. So, mistake three was tinkering with my program. And I would say, when most people say that they think about over tinkering and changing the program, for me, it was probably under changing it. And this applied to certainly my chest training for quite a while. I was very hesitant to move away from things like dips and the bench, but over the last year especially, I haven't touched bench in over a year now, and I've been milking the dumbbell fly presses and cable work like a mofo. Um, I think that as you train more and more, not only will you know what exercises work for you, you'll know what doesn't work for you, and if you you certainly run the risk of when you started training making too many changes or not enough changes. So I think that whenever you go into a session, I mean, obviously just pick a movement that works for you and don't take any scientific advice on what an optimal movement is ever. And don't even take advice from me when I say that this is the best movement for a certain muscle. I think another mistake that I was wary of, the fourth one, is focusing only on strong points. I'm all for training my back because I know that it's pretty easy for me to consistently make progress on. I have pretty damn good upper back strength, and I just love training back. But this can certainly take away from things, and as well as my delts, they grow pretty easily, and I know how to push hard on them. But this could possibly take away from overall shoulder health and recovery abilities from things that I need, like chest. It's human nature to gravitate towards what we're good at, whether that's pressing, pulling, any other lift. For me, like I say, it was upper back pulling exercises. I loved doing them because I was good at them, but that can mean that I may have neglected other parts. And it kind of took some psychological courage for me to lower my upper back volume in exchange for upping the chest volume just ever so slightly. But look, focusing on your strong points, it creates imbalances, and those imbalances can lead to injury and limit your overall potential. It wasn't until I started addressing my weaker areas, my core strength, or at least my ab hypertrophy, I suppose you could call it, and training my adductors pretty seriously with things like single leg work, and certainly strengthening my hamstrings dramatically. That has made my leg training just feel so much more secure. I feel like I can dominate any squat movements now just because my strength and stability behind the knee is way higher. I think that something else I wanted to touch on was applying this. I mentioned this earlier. It's about applying good advice that's not right for you. One of the more frustrating mistakes I made was applying good advice that just wasn't right for me. There's a load of solid information out there, but not all of it is applicable to everyone. So, for instance, I nearly fell into the trap of high frequency training and thought about switching out some a separate day just to train my arms. I'm not ruling that out in the future, but I tried it for a very short time and realized that I not only, well, mainly I just enjoyed training way less overall because the training frequency mentally was just not right for me. And it would mean that I would just procrastinate training overall. It made me feel like I was micromanaging every session. It's crucial to understand that fitness is pretty individual. What works for one person may not work for another. There are some rules, but the exceptions are higher than you think. And we talk about things like genetics in bodybuilding and what one person's insertions are like and how they compare to another. But one thing that's not taken into account enough or talked about enough is lifestyle and even mental resilience. If you're not, if you're not all there and in your attitude when you're meant to take a set to complete failure, if you can't consistently take all your sets to failure, then you don't have to train like that. The key, the same way it goes for volume. I do struggle with my sessions with high volume sessions mentally. That's why I compensate with just going a bit crazy on intensity sometimes. The key is to listen to your body, adapt fitness advice to your needs, but don't forget to have fun in your training. As fun as bodybuilding training could be, because not going to lie, sometimes it can be pretty boring. Okay. So if you're not having just a little bit of fun in training, don't be afraid to set strength goals on certain movements. That's probably the best way that you're going to progress anyway. Like for me at the moment, I'm on these belt squats. I love the belt squats, and I'm at 160 kilograms for eight right now. I'm thinking, how long is it going to take me to get to four plates for 10? I'm thinking about it in strength terms now, and that's what's going to keep me motivated. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with changing factors that will improve your motivation. So if you're already training hard and consistently, then give yourself a break. I don't say that often because there's a lot of people who need to be told to work harder in general areas in life. But if there's anything you can do that will make the whole process more fun, you're going to enjoy it a lot more and you're going to want to share it a whole lot more. So, this approach, well, these approaches and these lessons have helped me stay on track over this last year. I think that training is a journey and mistakes are part of the process, but by learning from common pitfalls that you can notice, you can definitely streamline your progress and make the most out of every workout so that at least you can look back at it and think not only that you gave your everything, but you can see the progress you've made. Thanks for sticking me with this through the video. If any of this was valuable, then let me know in the comments, and I look forward to chatting in the next video. I'm up for answering questions. I know this is a bit of a long one, but I hope it was of value to you guys. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you in the next video.